Alrighty. Welcome back to Doctor Who, Nick Lynch's Doctor Who and Doctor Who Reviews. Episode number 11. Yes. The last one I did for these was actually just before my trip, which was about a week ago, week or two ago. Yeah, the last one I did was when I did a review of Tomb of the Cybermen. Yep. Now, we are basically moving 2 years beyond that. Yes, 2 years. Yeah, basically about 2 years. This is actually the first story of a new era for Doctor Who. An era that lasted from 1970 to 1974. Where in the John Pertwee years, this is actually his very first story. Spearhead from Space. Yep, as seen from the cover, it's the first appearance of the Autons. Yep, first appearance of the Autons. Though that's not the only thing we had the first appearance of. Like, there's many firsts this one. Oh my god, there's a lot for this one. Okay. Not only the first appearance of the Autons, not only the first appearance of the John Pertwee Doctor, it is the first Doctor Who serial produced in color. Number 4, it is the first regular appearance of Brigadier Alistair Lippert Stewart. Number 5, it is the first appearance of Liz Shaw. Yep, and this one also starts a plot thread that will continue up until the Three Doctors, where the Doctor is stranded on Earth. His exile. Oh yeah, one other thing. It's also the first of a lot of unit stories for Doctor Who, like, in a row. Like, Unit would basically heavily dominate the Third Doctor era. Not much when it comes to the Fourth Doctor. No, not necessarily. They're there for the opening story of his first season, the opening story of the second season, and then like one air story after that, and after that, nothing for quite some time until one-off appearance in Sylvester McCoy's era, and that's pretty much it for Unit. Actually appeared like, I think a total of 4 times in Tom Baker's one, the 4th time they even have Brigadier Alice Lippert Stewart. Yep. Now, the thing with now the story of this one is quite now. If we start this out like, man, unless you watch like if you watch Tom Baker stuff, it's a little bit more different. The cinematography of this one, like, you can tell definitely just by watching this is definitely early 1970s style cinematography. Just by looking at it, it has sort of realistic feel to it, and this is also the first of many stories in a row to not only feature Unit, but also the first one in a row to feature in modern day. Yep. I have heard this was a cost-save measure that's set in modern days of having going to Alien Planet. They did occasionally go to Alien Planet, but it wasn't like a regular thing. Yeah, it would just save money. That was mainly the gist of the reason why the Doctor was exiled on Earth. That was the behind-the-scenes reason. The first character seen here is not the Doctor, surprisingly. This is, of course, right after the events of War Games. Yes, that was the last story for the Patrick Troughton one. And here's a fun little fact that comes to that one. That was also the last one where the episode count went to 10 episodes. Yeah, it was the last one to be double digits. If you're curious how long this one is, it's only 4 episodes. So that means it's a little over an hour and a half long. That's simple just to this one. Yep. So, you see Liz Shaw riding the car to Unit HQ. Here's a fun little thing about this. Like, if I remember watching a lot of these stories, basically in the last decade, I didn't watch it to come up because this came up before I was born, is that there's this underground parking lot for Unit HQ. It only appears in this story, and as far as I can tell, it doesn't appear ever again. And Liz Shaw is brought before the Brigadier. Now, his office, this would actually make a lot of appearances in the series. Well, mostly in John Pertwee's era. Yeah, this office would commonly appear. It's a nice looking office. And I gotta tell, it seems like the outside stuff seems to be different cinematography than the inside. The inside looks really good. It looks like the way that the camera looks on the inside, it looks like similar that we see in the Tom Baker run. So, before we get to Liz Shaw, we see that a meteorite has crashed to Earth. And then, of course, Les Shaw basically is told about the meteorites later on, and apparently it was like a 15 of them crashed the previous night, and overall in the past year, about 15 of them pretty much popped up over the course of this. So then we have the TARDIS show up not long after this meeting, and here comes John Pertwee, falling right out. Now, from what I heard, originally his face was not that clear. I mean, first time I watched, I could definitely tell that's not Patrick John. I could tell definitely just by looking at it. I can clearly tell basically that's John Pertwee. So he's later brought to the hospital, a local hospital, and they do something quite interesting. This is actually the first of 2 times ever in his Doctor Who, actually first of 3 times, they actually did this for the Doctor. They give him an x-ray. Yes. Why do I say first 3 times? Because the other 2 times this actually happened was actually in the Doctor Who movie that came out in the late 90s. That was the second time. That basically had it where, in this one, the guy thinks it's a joke when he sees the 2 hearts. In the case that one, I think it's a double exposure. That's what I think of the actual double hearts. The only other time this happened was in the episode The Power of 3 during Matt Smith's era, when they brought in Unit for the first time in his era, and it was the first time we actually met Catherine Leopard Stewart in the Doctor Who canon. And they also do with blood work, something they did not do in the movie, and they notice that the thing is not entirely human. He's an alien. So they have a armed guard at the TARDIS, and then later on it's actually brought to Unit HQ. Now, in the case of the lab that's there, well, they would change locations a couple times over the course of the run where the lab is, per se, or at least its appearance changes. Because if you watch Third Doctors and Robot, like, it's the same room because there's a door right near where the TARDIS is. So it seems as though at some point they changed the room where the Doctor's lab is. So there's that. So they give Liz Shaw her own lab, which is also the Doctor's lab too later on. So the Doctor, who had not... Now, this is a common trope that the Doctor would constantly do this every time he regenerates. Excuse me. Now, you might be asking, did Troughton do this during his first story? No. But this one was the first one they did for this one, where the Doctor sees his face the first time via a mirror. Now, this one basically is Liz Shaw gives him a small mirror. And every single one since then, they always have this common thing of the Doctor look at his face in the mirror in his very first story. And this would happen a lot. This has happened every single first story for a new Doctor since then. Like, they use some type of mirror. The only time technically they got away from this, the first time I could think of, was with Peter Capaldi's Doctor, where they use water, basically see reflection of the water into a reflection of a mirror. As far as I can tell for Jodie Whittaker, I believe she looked at a mirror, if I'm not mistaken, for her. But generally put, that's generally what they do. They basically look at a mirror to see basically what their new face looks like. Because a lot of the time they want to see, it's a nice face. And of course, they have it where the Doctor sees his face the first time, and he's like, oh no, they changed it. He doesn't explain the fact that his people... Now, here's the thing about the Doctor's people. His people are not identified by... Now, they're called the Time Lords. They mention it in the previous story, War Games. But the actual species they are... Well, that at least it's on planet per se, that is actually not mentioned until the Time Warrior. That is the first time that the name Gallifrey is brought up in Doctor Who, was with the Time Warrior, which I'll get to that eventually when I give hands on that story. So we also see a minor subplot with a guy named Ranson, where he arrives at this factory, and apparently a lot of this stuff is automated, despite the fact that a lot of this, there's like 2 people, and apparently like Yeah, the way it looks like it's run, it looks like the people who actually are putting. This is a plastic factory, mind you, that makes toy dolls. Well, plastic dolls, mind you. And he goes to see the manager of the plant, who apparently was supposed to be a partner of his, and he decided to cut him because reasons. They don't really give a clear reason why. They just say cut him, and he says, "Oh yeah, explain the letter," and he says, "This letter explains nothing," and then he just politely leaves. The later on, it's revealed he actually looked into the security room, which used to be his workshop. They do, in fact, show the workshop later, and it's quite interesting what's inside the damn thing. Now, as in the case of the Autons, they'll show up about a little over halfway through episode 1. That is the first time you see an Auton in the series. Oh yeah, and they also see the first time their special ability, which basically they have their little gun planted in their hand. The thing is like pulled down, or in the case sometimes basically I've seen it where they pulled the fingers off, and then they fired the little gun, which you see right there in the cover. Yeah, they would do this, and they would kill people with this particular gun. Now, they do something here they technically don't do in the other stories featuring the Autons. You're probably wondering, when is that? Now, they show killing a guy, but as in the case of disintegrating them, that is something they don't show in the other Auton stories. Now, in the case of classic Doctor Who, they only appeared one at a time after this. In the story that started off season, I believe this is technically season 7, mind you. When it started John Pertwee's second year on the show, that is when they actually brought him back one more time. And after that, they weren't seen again until the episode Rose, the first episode of the Christopher Eccleston run. And then pretty much after that, the Autons still do make a cameo of monsters. They'll make a proper return until Pandora opens. But pretty much after that, nothing. Yeah, this is a classic Doctor Who monster who didn't appear very much. Like in the case of Doctor Who. Yeah, by far when it comes to classic Doctor Who monsters, these guys appeared the least out of everybody. Well, that along with the Zygons, where after they make one appearance, they end up appearing into the 50th anniversary. So we also, there's like many plot. There's many different plots here. Like one is like this owner of this house who just look like this farmhouse where he just happens to find one of these meteorites, which is shaped like a spear, and he takes to his house and hides inside of a metal box, an old metal box. Where he got this thing, my guess is he must have had it for years. That's my personal guess, anyways, when it comes to that. The Doctor himself, like after the Bigger didn't think it's him, but he does say, yeah, he's him. And then he basically does the thing where he asks for his shoes. And he gets his shoes. And he pretty much just holds on to his shoes like he's holding on to something. And then when the Doctor's looking away, he simply just takes the shoes. Yeah, because apparently inside one of his shoes is the actual key to the TARDIS. Yep, the actual key to the TARDIS. So he jumps on one. It's not that one. Maybe the other one. Yep, it's there. Now, why in the world he decided to keep the key to the TARDIS in his shoes, that's something I don't know, because the story does not explain why, or how the heck he knew the key to the TARDIS was inside his shoes, because when he saw the Patrotron Doctor in War Games, he just basically fell into a vortex, and then like, poof, here's John Pertwee. It is by far the only regeneration never seen on screen. And for a long time, it was one of two. The other one was how, when the Doctor regenerated into Christopher Eccleston. They finally did show that in the 50th anniversary episode. Yep. So, they do in fact investigate, do a lot of investigating here. And the Doctor himself, basically, after, like, first he tries to, well, let's just say, then we have the people, the Gnostic conscious, well, Gnosticans, I'm not sure what to pronounce. I'll just call them the Autons. The people, the supervisor, him and two guys, don't know who these two guys are. They don't really identify them per se. Heck, the leader is never really named. He's just basically just the leader of the Autons. He tries to kidnap the Doctor for some reason. They don't really give a clear reason why. He just tries to kidnap him. So pretty much like right after that, like he tries to kidnap him, but he gets away. Though Doctor doesn't show off the stuff based. Now, if you're thinking though, like, does the Doctor show off his judo that he's known for using? No, he doesn't. He does show off like one little bit here, but it's not until later. It's not until other stories he finally shows it off. I think like the very next story comes after this one is Doctor Who and the Silurians, which is a very good story. Though I should point out though in the case of this one, it's actually the first of 4 stories for the third Doctor's first year. Why in the world there's only 4 stories? I have no idea. Though here's a strange thing though. The following 3 stories are all 7 episodes apiece. The second and fourth one, don't have a problem with their length. They're really good stories. Not in the case of the third one, the Bastards. That one really had no business being 7 episodes. You could cut it down by at least about 2 episodes. Wouldn't affect the story at all. Yeah, but I might get that eventually. So, in the case of the Autons, they're shown up several times. Usually, one I've seen is like 1, but they usually have other. They defeat them quite easily with some device the Doctor makes. So, the Doctor first escapes from how he escapes from the hospital is quite interesting. So, he gets out of his bed when the Doctor goes in a room with his Doctor, who rolls up in a 1920s convertible with one of those little handle things to turn on the car. So, he gets out of his room, takes a shower. As far as I know, this is the first and only time the Doctor has ever taken a shower in the entirety of Doctor Who. Well, he's shown taking a shower, mind you. And it's not shown here, but this is also the first instant the Doctor has been shown his rear end on screen. Well, it's John Pertwee Doctor, and he probably did just show off for the few viewers of the series. So then he basically steals some clothes, and then he steals this older Doctor's car, steals it, goes straight to Unit HQ, and that basically says, I want to talk to Brigadier Leopard Stewart right away. Go get him right now. And then the Brigadier asks the obvious question, how did you know about this place? How did you know where to find us? Simple. My fancy wristwatch told me. Yes, his wristwatch. Something he's never shown up before. Apparently he has this thing. Like, as far as I remember, I don't think this wristwatch has ever shown up again in the series. Not that I remember, no. None of the other Doctors wear it. It just maybe just is the only thing. So, he meets Liz Shaw first time. First calls her Miss Shaw. And then he's like, can I just call myself Miss Shaw? You can call me Liz. Yes, that's something he actually does do for the rest of his tenure, so don't worry about that. So, they do they figure out, they discuss the meteorites. But he really wants to get out of his TARDIS because he really wants to leave. So, they change the leave, so get the Doctor the key to the TARDIS. And eventually this does get back the key to the TARDIS. And he goes back inside, and thing doesn't work. Well, the thing is, when it comes to seeing the inside of the TARDIS, here's the interesting thing when it comes to the interior of the TARDIS. The first time you see it in this era is actually in the 3 Doctors. That is the first time you see it. Because Liz Shaw never set foot in this side of the TARDIS, despite the fact she's kind of considered to be a companion. Despite the fact she never traveled with the Doctor. She's the only person to be considered a companion who never stepped foot inside of the TARDIS. Nope, never did. The console itself, that makes several appearances in the series. Excuse me, but not the interior for some reason. Yeah, cost saving measure, obviously. So, he says he can't leave because, according to him, they changed the dematerialization circuit code. They changed the code on him. Well, I guess that was basically Robert Holmes. He's the writer of this one. That's probably a way him right out of the way where he can use the TARDIS, and he would do it several times trying to operate a TARDIS. Our TARDIS would operate once and get off the planet during his exile, but a lot of the time he would in fact later on do it by himself, no problem. So, then he tracks down the guy's place, And of course, they investigate the factory. We have another instance. Now, this particular story has something in common with the invasion, where the higher up general that Leopard's reports to gets influenced by the bad guys. Though this one's different, but it's very similar. So last time it was brainwashing. This time they simply just made a plastic duplicate of him, just basically put him in a museum. Then that guy was taken out. That particular jail Shelby was taken out by the Doctor thanks to his special device. Yeah, the Doctor makes fancy gadgets in this one, like he's freaking James Bond. And then he confronts the consciousness, which is, well, just a creature in a small box. It doesn't seem that very impressive. Not as impressive as how it showed up in Rose, where it looked like it fell up a freaking pit. Like, damn, thing was freaking huge. So, eventually the creature stopped, and then, of course, Doctor decides to stay there because he can't go really in place, so... Because he's offered a salary, he declines it, but he needs, like, some clothes, a car, same with the one he stole. He needs, like, the facility, the assistance of the Shaw, which would be something he would have next few stories, before the actress would leave. I've not heard exactly the reason why she left, but in story, they wrote it off as basically the Doctor just having the reason why she left was because she went back to Cambridge because she got tired of the Doctor just asking her how awesome he is and holding his test tubes. Yep. But for the first story, for the third Doctor, it's an excellent story. I give this one roughly a 10 out of 10. It's a classic Doctor Who story. Yep. Oh yeah, and the guy who's working with the leader, yeah, he gets taken out by the leader after basically the Doctor convinces the guy that he's being brainwashed. So he partially destroys the machine, though Doctor destroys pretty much the rest. And then the invasion stopped. They do explain that their species have been colonizing planets for thousands of millions of years. Their way of doing it using whatever substance they use to colonize planets, which I found that to be interesting. Though the thing is, they become a lot more threatening in their follow-up story. Yeah, I do mean a lot more threatening. Well, because a certain classic villain makes his first appearance in the next time they show up. Not made first for that one, mind you, but there's a few. This one's got a ton. Like, who would have thunk one story can have so many firsts with it? Yep. So yeah, that's a particular review. Stay tuned for 2 Comic Corners, and that'll be pretty much it. You're probably asking, where's your 2 Love Root Darkness review? I haven't watched the episodes yet, sadly. I'll probably get to it soon, per se. Hopefully before I start my next anime. Before that, okay? See you next video. Bye.